All right, hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Caregiver Coffee. My name is Matt Estrad. I'm a gerontologist in the New Orleans area, and I've been partnering with the Council on Aging in St. Tammany for over 5 years, leading their caregiver support groups 4 times a month. I will talk a bit about the groups towards the end of this video. The focus of today is going to be on driving. This is a topic that will impact most of us, even if as care partners and ourselves as we age, and is certainly not limited to the discussion of dementia, because there are many reasons why we may have to retire our driver's or surrender our driver's license. Probably retirement is a better way. Retiring our driver's license is a better way of putting that. So eventually we're going to reach an age where we do have to give up our keys, where our loved ones that we're taking care of will have to give up their keys. And sometimes it goes well where the person does it willingly. I like to think that I will do that. But there are also many times where it is not, where it's a real struggle. It's something difficult to do for the family member or the friend who's taking care of a loved one, and it could be difficult on the other side for that person as well. Because at the end of the day, I don't think that any of us, want to take something away that someone's been enjoying, and is really a symbol for independence. And I think that's a good thing to kind of lay down the foundation, is that the driver's license, the keys, the car, it's a symbol of independence. And we in America, we pride ourselves on independence and being able to get around and navigate our schedules as we want to. And when we have to retire our driver's license, or our ability to drive, that takes away some freedom, and some people take it better than others. But certainly it's not something that I'm looking forward to, either doing for someone else, or my keys, giving up my keys one day. But it will happen. So it's something that we'll talk about, and want to provide some of the ins and outs of what happens in the state of Louisiana. I've interviewed an occupational therapist that works at Oxner Health in Elmwood, and his primary job is the driving assessments. And at this point in the New Orleans area, that is really the only place that has both the medical or the cognitive test, and the actual on-the-road driving test. And if you contact me, I can tell you more about how to find out who this is, and how to reach out to them, since they are the only source. But I spent some time with him on the phone, and learned a lot, and I'm happy to share that information with you here today. So the concern of someone driving can, and by the way, you can send in comments or questions while we're recording this live. If you have any questions or follow-ups afterwards, if you're watching the recording of this, please send me an email at matt@carepartnermentoring.com, because sometimes comments come in after on these archive videos, and I'm not alerted. So I want to make sure that I answer your question if you send me a follow-up. So this driving situation, and the question of whether someone can drive or not, it can come up in various ways. Someone could have an accident that brings to light this question. There might be a near accident where someone almost gets into an accident, hurting themselves, hurting someone else, hurting some property. And then there might be times when there's not even an accident, but you just have to be riding in the car with your loved one, or maybe someone else is riding with them and reports back to you and say, like, this happened. I have real concerns about their ability to drive, and trusting that they're going to be safe for themselves and for the passengers and for other people who are out on the road. And a geriatrician that I work with, the way that she phrases it and talks to her patients is that she says, would you trust this person with having your children in the car? Would you let them go pick up your kids at school and drive them home? And that's a pretty good indicator of how much you trust the safety of that person. And again, it's not about that person, it's about their ability to drive, which, as mentioned, is going to impact all of us that are watching this video at some point. So that's a good question to ask yourself. And when there is a question, there are different ways that you can there are different ways that you can bring this up. You can talk to them and see if they will go to a driving assessment. You could bring it up to actually I would maybe that's the best case scenario, but I'll leave that up to you. So another option is bringing up to the doctor, so that at the next doctor's visit, they can the doctor who you've already communicated with can sort of do an assessment, ask them questions, ask them how they're feeling, and then make a recommendation, potential referral to a driving assessment. And then you can also contact the Office of Motor Vehicles yourself and say, I have a concern about my loved one. Just like a doctor can do the same thing. A doctor is not gonna, in Louisiana at least, is not gonna say, okay, in the appointment, you're not able to drive. I'm taking away your driver's license. A physician is not, as far as I know, and I understand, a doctor is not able to do that. But what they can do is contact the Office of Motor Vehicles, just like a family member can, and say, I'm concerned about this person. And what Office of Motor Vehicles will do, they're also not going to just take away that person's driver's license or their ability to drive. What they'll do is they'll send a form to, they'll mail a form to that person, to the patient, to the person who we're concerned about. A mail will go to them. And it will be a form. It's a medical and vision form. This is a form that a doctor will fill out and sign, and say that and make a recommendation. Now, what the physician can do, the physician sometimes doesn't want to be, well, the bad person is not using the right terminology, but many times the doctor doesn't want to be the person that makes the decision for the driving. And many times, maybe they're not the right person. Optimally, what happens, like best case scenario, is that if the person does not want to give up their keys, actually that's the best case scenario, if they want to give up their ability to drive and rely on you and others in public transportation. The next best thing is that the physician will refer that person to an occupational therapist, like the one I was talking about, mentioning at Ochsner in Elmwood, and they would go through the test, and I'll get through the test in a moment. So the physician can recommend it, or the doctor can say, hey, I'm not comfortable with you driving, and I'm not going to sign this form until you go over and you get a driver assessment, and that occupational therapist sends me a note and gives me their recommendation, and then I will sign this letter, or this medical and vision form that you've received from the Office of Motor Vehicles. One more thing about this form. It says on there that the person, once they receive it, they have 30 days, or their license can they have 30 days to get it filled out by the doctor in return, or there's a potential for their license being suspended. So 30 days is not a long time. So if someone receives that letter, they need to move quickly to get to go to the doctor to get to the assessment. All right, so let's say that the doctor said, I'm really not comfortable signing this form. I want you to talk to an expert in the field to make sure that you are truly able to drive safely, because really this is about safety of that person, other people on the road. So the next thing would be, so say you take you want to keep, let's say that the person wants to keep their license, they want to keep driving, so they go ahead and they schedule the driver's exam. Unfortunately, the driving exam is not covered by any of the insurances that we are aware of, so it's a cash price, and it is 2 parts. There is a cognitive assessment. It's going to be a little different than if you went to neurology and got a screening for dementia. This is a cognitive assessment that goes through different domains of being able to drive, includes vision, includes making decisions, includes recognizing signs on the road. So if someone passes this cognitive, I'll call it test, they can then move on to the driving on the road test. So the cognitive, if you pass the cognitive, if you don't pass the cognitive, you only pay for half of that exam. You're not going to pay the full price because it's a 2-part test. So let's say you pass that, you're going onto the road. So you'll be in the vehicle, a special vehicle, with the occupational therapist, and you're going to drive around places that are familiar. And it may include the interstate, it may not, it may include the causeway, it may not. But you'll follow the directions, and the occupational therapist will assess how you're doing and knowing how to get around, how to wayfind. your reaction time on the road and braking and using your signal, etc. And then they'll come up with a report after that. Either that day or the next day, they're going to send their notes and recommendation to the physician, and then the physician will now have the information to either say, I'm gonna turn in the form, I think that you're okay to drive, or they might say, I don't recommend, I can't sign this, and recommend that you continue to drive. Or it might be somewhere in the middle where I will still agree or with the recommendation. I recommend that you continue driving with these limitations, and it might be only during the day. It might be only familiar places such as the clinic and the grocery store and going to pick up at school if that's the case. So familiar places. So it's not just yes or no. There's sort of there can be a middle ground that is reached with that. So if this is a situation where the driver's license is going to be retired, in other words, the keys are going to be taken away, then you have to work with your loved one who no longer has the authority to drive, has a license to drive, to work with them to get them to where they need to be, so that they're not isolated, so they can still participate in activities, so they can still go to the gym, so they can go see friends and have coffee, so they can go play bridge or bingo, so they can still go to the grocery. So it's going to be incumbent upon the care partner and other family members and other friends to help get this person around, so it doesn't, so their what could be their greatest fear of isolation become a reality. So it's not just, okay, we're safe because they're not on the road anymore. It's, it becomes another responsibility. With this comes responsibility to still be able to get their loved one around and doing activities. The driver's license also doesn't necessarily have to be taken away. A state ID can be issued in lieu of this. So the driver's the card will still have a picture. It will say still Louisiana and have all the information, have an address, organ donor, all this other kind of stuff. But it just won't allow someone, it won't authorize someone to be able to drive. But again, the person still has a card in their wallet. That's something that I would think is still good. It still feels good to have an ID in your wallet and have that in your car, rather than it just being taken away. And having something you've had in your wallet for 50 to 70 years, well, not that long, but for let's say 50 years, having that taken away. So that's something to think about. But so you're thinking about your loved one and the consequences of them not having that. So it's really it's a partnership between a physician, the Office of Motor Vehicles, with the person who's living with dementia or is getting up in age where they're really not safe to drive, and also the care partners, including the family and including friends sometimes. So it's really like a big team effort, and it should not, ideally, is not something that is adversarial, and something that can be, with some coaching and with some real thought and real consideration of all the different parties, can be something that is reached without any kind of or much conflict, or as less conflict as possible. So if you have follow-up questions about this, this is such a huge topic, and there's other nuances and things that certainly could come up. I invite you to send me an email at matt@carepartnermentoring.com, and I'm happy to answer those questions for you. I'll be doing a podcast on this, an interview with the occupational therapist that I've already interviewed, but this time it's going to be recorded, so I'll get to ask some more questions. So if there's anything I didn't talk about, maybe it's an opportunity for me to ask the occupational therapist. Be glad to get your emails at matt@carepartnermentoring.com. And finally, a little bit about the care partner caregiver support group. It's something that I've been partnering with, as mentioned, with Coast for 5.5 years. I continued to do that even in the pandemic. So March of 2020, we went virtual, so we're on a Zoom video and phone platform. We still have good attendance, so I encourage you to check that out. Just email me if you want some information, such as the call-in information and the calendar of dates. We have the dates booked out to November, and after that I'll get more, but that's what the current calendar is. It's typically on a Tuesday, either at noon or 6 p.m. We kind of rotate depending on the week. So I encourage you to check that out. Now, you don't have to be a caregiver. You can be someone, you can be a family member of someone who's living with dementia or who has other chronic conditions, and you're maybe you not are the primary caregiver, but you want to learn more about it because you want to get more involved or you just have questions. So please certainly send me an email so we can get you involved and you can check the group out. Caregiver support groups can be very powerful. I won't say that they're for 100% of people, but that's with any kind of program, but certainly giving it a chance would be wonderful. It gives caregivers and other people an opportunity to hear from fellow care partners and caregivers who are in a similar situation, because no situation is exactly the same, but gives an opportunity for being together with people who are in similar situations that might have gone through similar challenges before and they have some solutions, or maybe they have physicians they want to refer. That they can tell you about if you're seeking a specialist or a primary care physician. You have questions about music and about just any kind of piece of the care partner or caregiving situation. You can ask it there, and it's completely confidential. You have nothing to worry about as far as people sharing that you were there or your loved one is not well. So I will end it right there at 16 minutes. It's been a pleasure presenting this information. It's a joy to provide these presentations every week, and I appreciate you joining. I appreciate you liking and sharing. Let the Council on Aging know if you're enjoying these. Julie Agan is the Executive Director. Let her know if you appreciate these videos, and we will we'll keep doing them. So until next Monday, that's going to be the 13th, Monday the 13th at 12 noon. I will see you. Have a great day and great week until I see you then. And as always, if you have specific questions or you want me to cover specific topics in the future, I invite you to reach out via the email address that I've been giving you, and I'll be happy to consider any and all topics to bring up. Until then, take care. I'll see you next week. Bye.